Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team.
There's a really good 1-minute clip with Kobe and Saban. And when we started using it, we're like, just so y'all know, like, you could argue whatever you want to argue. I'm not worried about LeBron. I don't want to worry about, like, all-time greatest, period. And they're having this conversation, and basically it was about, and we talk about this, and we talk about this through our theme, and we talk about it specifically when we talk about in Ephesians, right? In this book that I love to read, it's got 66 chapters, and it says that your attitudes and your thoughts must all be constantly changing for the better. The power of your thoughts has tremendous ability to shape your life for good or for bad. And Kobe talks about it specifically with editing your life. And he's speaking with Saban, and he's like, yeah, everybody was telling me, like, I should be starting and I should be playing. And he said, eventually, I literally had to say to him, like, shut up. Like, you're not at practice. You're like, you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're not helping me. And so he talked about editing your life and how in the preseason, like I got to edit my life. Like, I wasn't doing that in the summer, but I got to do it now because I got to play less video games. Bo Beach, again, going back to the guy I was telling you about getting into him. You know, he was in bed during the week. He was in bed at 10:30. And he had a great life. He had a great college life. He had a girlfriend. He got his degree. He, unfortunately, was a little bit better at Texas Hold'em than I liked. But my point is, it wasn't like he lived in a cave.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to. Like, we got a kid on our team right now. He probably could be president of the student body if he keeps going the way he's going. We had a kid that graduated, Al Farouk Aminu, was an 8th pick in the draft right behind Epe. And we're sitting back here taking pictures at the NBA draft in 2010. And I give this little 13-year-old kid a hug, and he ends up being one of the greatest players ever played for us. I never saw him again until we started. I couldn't even tell you who he was, but I also officiated his wedding.
Nice.
And officiated, I think, 8 players now. But my point is, Kobe just talked about, like, there's certain times and certain things, like, we just have to change certain things that we do.
Yeah.
And, we have to get up earlier for boot camp. Go up earlier. This isn't rocket science. And that's our theme, by the way. Right. So it's not rocket science. I've been saying that forever. But so we decided to turn it into a theme. All the themes are up on it's funny. We started themes and we started winning. So great correlation between those two things.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if there's but some of the guys.
Well, can I jump in? I think Jordan, it has a good flow. Jordan Peterson has a great talk about your aim and how everybody has to have an aim. And when kids don't have something they're aiming for, that's when they end up wasting their time, that their day gets away from them. When you have an aim, then your life starts to turn and revolve around what that aim is. And I think so for players, just like a great example of that is your aim is to be the best basketball player. All right, well, look at your day and see how does that aim actually line up with what your day looks like, with your example of 6 a.m. workouts, get to bed earlier because that's your aim. But then I think we have to do, and you probably do a great job of this, I know Coach Drew does, and being at Grapevine Faith Christian School, we're mandated to make sure that the ultimate aim is in place which is our relationship with Christ. Because you talked about the story a little bit. I think where I got in trouble was my aim was just basketball. And when basketball was tough or in a bad spot, man, I found a new aim, and it was that party scene. Well, when our aim is in the right person and not a human being or per se, like a relationship here, because if your aim is in your girlfriend or even your spouse, well, that person is, they're not perfect. And if they let you down, if they make a mistake, does that jar your entire existence? So I think one is getting our players to have the right aim for basketball in the right context, but then also having something bigger. But I like that idea of when you have something, like that's what you see players that say that they want to be great, but their aim is showing something different because of the way their day lines up, their priorities. I think that's a good reminder for them.
Well, everybody wants to be a pro, right? And like, so to go along what you said, we do this thing with them, and there's this, it's a salary in hours spent chart, right? And it's like if you get a regular job, like I think 55,000 is a college right now, right? 39,000 is teacher salary in the state, right? So I just went with 45. And if you go overseas and you make 35 tax free, yada, yada, yada. So I do this whole chart, right? And you end up with $33 a day if you're a normal person working, making 45 grand. But that doesn't count like food and clothes and bathroom bakeries and all. And I probably was probably not as, $1,000 for housing. It's probably low. But the most important part is that hours part, right? I had like sleeping, going to class, studying, eating, athletics, just those 5 things. I gave them 140 hours for the week. So at the end of the day, there's 28 hours left in the week. Well, 28 divided by 7 is 4 hours a day. Well, what are you doing? And I started asking them. I said, let's give me some things. Like, what are you doing? Well, I'm taking a nap. No, you already took a nap. I got the nap in there.
Sleep's done. Sleep's done.
I'm a big nap guy. Like I make sure they have them on their calendar or whatever. No, I got nap in there. So you're okay about the nap. Get something else. Of course, video and girl and hanging out with the guys and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, and that's where, like the Bo Beach. And I think that really helped Dallas, who become the greatest scorer in Division I basketball in the state of Florida. I think because of Bo, and now it's been kind of that culture has been passed along, guys understand. And I'm a big believer in like activity and achievement are 2 different things. And a lot of guys that run their mouth, they're active, right? We got a kid, and the coach told me from a Power 5 school, and he said, Coach, I'm just telling you, he's hurt all the time. And I said, okay, why is that? He's in the gym too much. When he thought, I'm punching the clock. I'm punching the clock. I'm on, he wasn't on social media, but like them dudes are like,
sure.
I'm doing this. Guess what? And so we gave him these 30-minute plans, and it basically was about 200 makes. Now you got to be able to shoot it, to get it knocked out. He could get it done in 24 minutes, 27 minutes, whatever. He's one of the greatest shooters that ever played here, and I was able to officiate his wedding too. And he's got an incredible, so he came from a very, very, very well-off family. And so he went back and he wants to give back to those that can't have what he has. So it's like a combination of both. I just preached for the first time on Sunday. He's done some Thursdays. But like when he was in school, he was like married. He was doing like 5 different individual kids a week where he was meeting with them and understand. And like, obviously 4.0 student and Arthur Ashe Award winner, and he made errors. He made some errors, but it goes back to what we said earlier. I preached in July, and he's in the audience, and I did the NF song Search, and in the song there's a part that talks about when you're a kid and you take a bath and you take your toy and you hold it under the water and you let it go and it comes up, and in that song it talks about and they come out of nowhere like an evil surprise, and it hovers over you to tell you millions of lies. And basically, it's everything you suppressed inside you. It just keeps coming up and coming up. And it either leads you to whatever. And Coach Kennan says it all the time. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So like who you surround yourself with will also, Matt, help you maybe not get in those different scenarios as well too, right? And so JT, he was already married. We married him in May. He goes to hears me preach in July. In August, we go to Puerto Rico for a foreign tour. And while we're there, he's just walking around and he's like with a couple of his, guys, and two of the guys are really love the Lord. And JT is unbelievable. He did a great job preaching. And so they basically convinced him, like, I got to go. So he went and got help. And he spent I didn't know it at the time. He comes back like August 25th, the first. He like, Coach, where you at? I got to come see you. Like I got to. I'm like, okay, yeah, come on. And so like he was so like, he was 7 years old when it happened. So he's had it since he was 7 years old. He's 22 now at this time, So 15 years he's been suppressing this deal, right? And he got done. I'm like, hey, let me ask you a question, bro. Like, what was the big deal? Like, what at the end of the day, like, what was your end goal of this? Like, he's like, Coach, I want to be a great husband and I want to be an amazing father. And he's like, I knew if I allowed this to continue, that as I got older, sometimes I think it might be a little bit even more easy to stray whatever way you're going to stray, because you got a lot more either resources or whatever.
Yeah.
And and so
less accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm like, okay. And what's great is we ended up getting done. I say, let me ask you a question. Would you mind like doing this for the paper? Like, would you talk to the paper about this? And so they did a front page spread about him and about this particular scenario. And we did it for the right reasons. Next thing you know, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 people. It doesn't matter. We're just emailing and reaching out and like, man, I'm going through this, or I've gone through this, or so God was able to you utilize these different, but my point is, it goes back to like, all these different things that we hear and different things that go on. I had a guy come up to me who was a student fan that had kind of come through our program that we befriended, over the years. And he heard me speak at the same church. I don't think it was the same night. I think it was a different night. And I had talked about, everybody talks about alcohol and meth and all that kind of stuff, but pornography in and of itself, I started going into this, whatever. And he reached out to me and he's like, Coach, I felt like you were talking to me. And so he was able to get help, and he was able to overcome that vice, so to speak. And so I think sometimes, this goes back probably 15, 20 minutes ago when we were talking. I think what's important about what you did and what more have to do is, and here's how we say it. I'm a big believer in dots on a map. It's a huge thing of what every time I speak. When I just spoke the other day, I'm speaking at this. I'm the keynote speaker at this men's retreat at this really just church, whatever.
Nice.
And they want me to. It's basically about balance of life, and which I was awful at. I'm still not great at it. But anyways, here's what we say. Like, if you can embrace where your feet are planted, like when we got here in 09, or Coach Drew got there in 03, however you want to, paraphrase it or do whatever. Like if I'm more concerned about winning and getting out, if I'm more concerned about that next deal, can I be the next coach at this place or that place or whatever? Like, I'm never going to be any good where I am. Like, there's no chance. And that's what I wish more kids can understand when they look at us or they look at our program and they see, like, if you just embrace, everything else will take care of itself. So here's how we say it. it's really critical. Dots on the map are so critical to embrace where your feet are planted, but with a genuine purpose. And then the golden rule we change. So embrace where your feet are planted with a genuine purpose, treating others the way you want to be treated. But what my daddy says, or my daddy used to say, not the way they're treating you. So don't forget, like, it's great that treat others the way you want to be treated. But in reality, it's really treat others amazingly, no matter what. Just, and you don't have to break bread with them, and you don't have to go to lunch with them, and you don't have to do anything with them. But you could just be respectful and agree to disagree. And if it wasn't for that bar called Kelly's in Minneapolis, you and I aren't having this conversation because, but if I don't do what, again, earlier what we talked about, saving, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Shai said, you got to get on the assistant coaches committee. All right. Why? Because that's what you got to do. Well, long story short, I do. But as good as God is, it puts me literally across the table from Coach. And Coach knew that Coach Drew was going to retire. And so I thought he was Bryce. So I'm sitting there like, man, I'm sitting across from Bryce Drew, man. And I don't even know if I said anything. I don't even know if I even said something to make him think one way or the other.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. And at the end of the meeting, like, it goes back to embrace where your feet are planted. Well, I walk in, I got papers and charts and graphs, and we're going to change this rule and how can we get this rule better? But in reality, everybody was there because back then you could get your tickets early if you were on a committee. And if you got your tickets early, you could scalp them faster. And if you scalped them faster, you could get a better bang for your buck than when the market's saturated by the time everybody else got there.
Wow.
Right? But nobody's gonna say that's accurate, but I'm just telling you that's the reality. So I'm there and I'm like, and I'm really disgruntled to begin with that we're in the basement of a bar. In my brain, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we're trying to make this game better. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So we get done, and Coach says, "Hey, I'm gonna resign from being the first vice president because yada yada about going back, whatever. Does anybody want to do it? And I had just gotten on the committee, and I'm just sitting there, nobody. And Coach Drew said, "Hey, I think this guy, I think Coach should do it," and that's how I got on the committee. And that was I think it was 01, whenever the Minneapolis, I should know this because it's important. It's important, but I think it was 01. And then we get fired in 03. And when we get fired, Coach was his first year at Valpo.
Yep.
They went to the NIT. So we get fired on it's a Monday. We get fired on Monday, whatever they call that, Black Monday or whatever. So we get fired on a Monday, right? But back then, you knew who the Monday night NIT game was. They told you in advance so you could travel on Sunday, yada, yada, yada. So Coach Scheid says, "Hey, Driscoll, do me a favor. You clean up my office because I ain't coming to clean up my office." I said, "Yeah, no problem, Coach. I'll clean it." So as I'm walking the boxes out to the car, back and forth, I got this huge picture window in front of my office. My office was right on the street of Clemson. And inside it, my TV was playing, and it was the NIT game. And it was Valpo at Iowa. And I'm walking by and I'm watching the game. I didn't even correlate that Coach Drew sat. Like I got 2 kids. I got a house. But in 2 Thessalonians, I believe Coach Tang taught me that. I believe it's 3:6 through 13. It talks about we can't just lay idle. God, God will do it. God will do it. I love God. Well, guess what? Work brings profit. So I'm walking by and I'm seeing this box, right? Well, you don't know this and you should know this, but if you do, you're unbelievable. Well, that year, that March after we got fired, Dick Bennett got the Washington State job. And when Dick Bennett got the Washington State job, Coach Drew's assistant, Mike Heidelman, who was Dick Bennett's kumbaya, was with Scott for 1 year, left Scott and went to Washington State with Tony. And when he did, their AD said to Scott, like, you got to hire an old guy. Like, you got to hire an older guy. And so because of all that, and then just because of that one meeting, that's the only time I ever met him. I was able to, just, and again, it's
that's
all
the dots, right? That's the dots in the map.
Who taught me that? You're going to love it. Mr. Allison. Do you remember him? His
Who's
name's
that?
up on football. He was a big supporter of ours. His name's up on the football facility. I believe I think he even wrote a book. I think he made most of his money from oil. Jay Allison. He went to Baylor because his girlfriend was going to Baylor. He walked into Grant, what's his name, the football guy, Taft or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Coach Taft.
He's like, hey, I'd like to, whatever, be a walk-on or whatever. And I think he was a lineman of some kind. He ended up being like a 3-year Southwest Conference all league player, yada, yada, yada. But one night, like 10:30 at night, we're at the Exxon where the subway was, and I'm coming back in the office, and I'm stopping to get a coffee, and I turned down the aisle, and there he was, in like jeans and I'm like, Jay, like, what are you doing? Like, why? And that's the night that he taught me. He called it stars on a map, because how they star.
That's right.
And he called it. He said, I just spoke to the business school, yada, yada, yada. And that's what he called it. So from that moment on, it kind of resonated with me. And then I've turned it into to dots on a map. But because of that moment, I was able to, get hooked up with Coach. And then I was 39.
39. Yeah.
See, 03. I would have.
You're the oldest person on our staff at 39.
No, 38. 30.
38,
I turned 39 that year.
Yeah.
But that's why I got the job, because his AD said you got to hire somebody old.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.